students that we've worked with before on placements, and also my colleague Laura Nixon, the placement manager for the faculty. So to start with, we've got Dan Sawford with us, who's one of our product design alumni, and who since leaving DMU and graduating, he started his own business. So it's great to see you here today, Dan. You're muted at the moment.
There you go. First, make a mess. Hi, yeah, good to be here. Thank you.
So obviously when you did your placement, I think we were discussing earlier that it was about 4 years ago you did your placement?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, 4 years ago, yeah. A long time ago, so.
Seems like yesterday.
Yeah.
It was certainly more interesting and harder than some of our other students have faced before, but you actually finished with a clear direction about where you wanted to take your career once you graduated. Would you say that's about right?
Yeah, I think what's important to say is that no matter what your placement is like, you'll always learn something from it. And whilst mine didn't go the way I was hoping it was going to go, and I didn't get out some of the stuff I wanted to get out of it, I didn't get. It still gave me a great platform to go forwards. So yeah, I'd say you're about right, really, because I learned a lot about the industry and myself. And so from that, I sort of learned what I liked, where I fitted in, what I was good at and what I wasn't good at. And that sort of directed me into having my own business alongside also doing some tutoring as well. The reason for that is I was at a design consultancy, and whilst I enjoyed doing design work, I didn't enjoy the atmosphere and how the consultancy-based career is like, what it's like, how it works. I didn't really enjoy that. But what I did enjoy was making things. I enjoyed working, saying I did that, I can do this. I enjoyed developing my skills, learning more. And so that's what led me to do and start my own business about 3 years ago, 2-3 years ago. And it was certainly something that I wouldn't have been able to do without going on a placement. And certainly the exposure to the design industry really, directed me to say, look, if I don't think I can work in this sort of environment, it certainly shows that I could work in a different area, which is where working for myself comes in, really. So yeah, it was a great platform and a great way to get direction of where I want to go in life, really. So yeah.
You touched on a little bit that you're tutoring as well. That's at DMU, isn't it?
Yeah, that's both a aspiration and also partial reality. So I work in the workshops for some of the week, and also I do a little bit of tutoring as well. Aiming to do a PhD next year to really, kickstart that. Again, that comes from my work experience, where I enjoyed making things, but found one of my real passions is helping other people, and that's sort of what directed me to want to do tutoring as well. So sort of combining the best of both, combining what I'm good at and getting rid of what I'm bad at, sort of thing, really.
I'm sure you're not bad at anything, Dan. Interestingly enough, it wasn't around when you did your placement year, but we've launched an enterprise placement year now, which enables students to look at spending the year exploring what self-employment would look like. So the students don't have to have a business idea. They literally can just they don't have to have a business that's launched. They do have to have an idea. And Laura is our placement tutor for that, as well as the 12-month placements. But it was certainly something that I thought that was important for our faculty within art and design. Do you think that would have been something that you would have potentially thought of doing instead of a traditional placement year?
Possibly, yes. I mean, sort of, I would argue that without my placement, I probably wouldn't have known I wanted to have done that. But if I knew that was available and I had studied it, then perhaps that would have been a reality. And I certainly think that would have been extremely helpful. Would have given me a good few steps ahead of where I am now. And certainly I think that something like that is a great avenue to explore, because going into industry and working for someone else isn't for everybody. So the more options are available, the better. So I'd certainly say I would have considered it, yes, if I was back in that position again. Yeah.
That's amazing. So we're also joined on the stream today by Rachel, Shoshana and Lucy. And you guys have literally just finished your placement year and have headed back to your final year. Do you think your placement year has helped you kind of formulate some of the plans that you might want to do when you graduate?
I'll go first. So my placement was split into two. So I did like buying and merch. So that's kind of quite rare for our industry. You don't normally get to do both. So I think for me, it was just time to like go, decide whether I wanted to do merch, wanted to do buy-in, what was going on in my head. And I think from doing merch for like 10 months, because of COVID, I could only do buy-in for 2. I think it just really made me realise that merch isn't necessarily for me. I think buying is much more of the path that will be for me in the future. I moved to London, obviously, I'm sure Lucy did as well. So just kind of that experience of living away from home, like fully away from home. And just kind of, for me, it kind of felt like, I was like, okay, I'm going to stay at home for a bit, kind of get my degree, decide what I want to do, hopefully go into buy-in, and kind of the job that I got offered was an amazing platform to kind of use in the future and say that I've been offered a job. But yeah, I think buy-in is more my path.
So you mentioned there that they offered you a job. So congratulations, they've offered you a graduate role, haven't they?
Yeah, they have. Yeah.
Still thinking about it?
I have been thinking about it, but just because of like personal circumstances, I'm going to decide to decline it. But the one thing I'd say is I think I was one of the first students to go to TK, and I'd say it's an absolutely amazing platform. Like, you get 3 months of training, everyone's really supportive. You just get an amazing platform to kind of be literally the same as all the other analysts that are in the company. You get trained exactly the same. You get trained with the grads. You get the platform to like travel. I got to go to Krakow with my team. I got to go do loads of strategies, go on lots of trips. Like, I got to shadow my buyer, which was amazing. She was like one of the best buyers in my team. So although I'm not deciding to take the job, it's something that they offer to like all their placements if they feel like they can take them on as grads. So although it's not right for me, it's an amazing platform for someone who would potentially want to go back.
An amazing confidence boost that actually you did a great job. So brilliant, well done. Shoshana, how was it for you?
For me, it was incredible. So I went to Barcelona for a year as a AC, so a language assistant, and it was incredible, absolutely amazing. It was cut short, but the time I did get to spend with the students really opened my eyes to what I want to do after my degree, which is to teach. I just now need to decide whether it will be primary or secondary, but it was a great experience to be able to sit down and be like, wow, this is something I could really get into, because I studied dance and it was like, okay, I can teach dance now, but it's really widened my imagination of what is even possible. So I'm pretty excited to see what else I can find and get involved in.
You're quite an adventurous individual anyway, though, aren't you? Because you'd headed off to Fiji prior to heading to Barcelona as well. So are you thinking more teaching in the UK or teaching further afield now?
I definitely appreciated my time abroad and teaching in Fiji and the different styles and the way that it's done. So I might, start in England and then just explore the rest of Europe, or maybe, keep going further afield. But I want to start home and then, move around. It's an amazing experience to see how different schools and different education systems work within different cultures.
That's amazing. What about you, Lucy? Has this kind of shaped your direction for where you want to go when you graduate?
So I worked for Disney in the creative design and product development department, and as you probably know, Disney is such a massive company. They literally own they've got Star Wars, Marvel, they've got their animation studios, they own Fox now and ESPN. It was such a huge company, and in some ways that's really beneficial because you get to see so many different aspects of the company. But for me, it kind of highlighted that I wanted to work for a company that I could have more say in. At Disney, it's quite hard to climb the ladder. You're sort of ideas and your, set, like what you say doesn't really go further than your manager. And obviously within the London head office alone, there's 200 interns. So you're not really going to get, where you want to do. If you've got an innovative idea, you can't really get very far up, which is obviously, it was an amazing placement, but I think I wanted to work for a company in the future that I can have more say in, and I can have more control over my job roles. Over the summer, I kind of highlighted that because I started my own small business, just so I could have some more control over what I wanted to produce. And yeah, I think basically I just want to work for a company that I can sort of voice my ideas properly and be heard.
That's amazing. So realistically, you've kind of done a full circle, a bit like Dan. Done a placement, had an amazing experience, and launched your own business from it. That's incredible, Lucy.
Thank you.
Which leads me on to the fact that none of you guys really had a standard placement year. Let's be brutally honest about it. We can't really hide the fact that the pandemic has kind of hit. I believe, Shoshana, you spent some time continuing in Barcelona, and then obviously you returned back to the UK. And Rachel and Lucy, you carried on working for both the companies, but worked quite remotely. Do you think that you've developed more skills by working from home and having to adapt to the changing environment than you would have done if you'd stayed working in the office in the normal environment that you'd have been in?
For me, I definitely feel like being able to come back home was a great relief. So being able to just take a breath and be like, okay, what do I need to do now? What's my next step? Because it's very different from, I could spend a couple hours in the afternoon planning my sessions, but now it takes 2 hours to have a 1 hour session because you always have to have things ready. There is no, of course, there's freedom of movement within the class, but it's now minimalized because you always have to be able to click onto the next screen. You have to have the next thing ready. So I definitely think my organizational skills improved drastically, and my timings. So like their morning is like early morning for me. So a 9 o'clock starts and 8 o'clock start in England. So I'd be up early, I'd be getting ready, It was a shock to the system, but I definitely realized my technical skills had gotten better on the computer, like just being able to whip things out, having things ready, and just guessing what they'd ask next, like specific questions I could lead them towards, or things that be like, okay, I think this might be relevant, I'll have it ready, and if it is, I can whack it in. If it's not, that's absolutely fine. But it's always being 5 steps ahead of where you want to be, and that kind of organization was something I hadn't had to think about before the lockdown, where I carried on teaching remotely. So it was a shocker to the system, but it was one I definitely enjoyed taking the challenge for.
What about you, Rachel?
Yeah, it was very strange. I went on holiday to Tenerife and then came back for like 3 days, and then I basically got a call from TK and we're like, okay, you're working from home for a week. I was like, okay, that's fine. So for a while it was very strange, because obviously quickly it went from like we got locked down a week before everyone else got locked down. Obviously all our stores got shut, so we basically had all of like being an analyst, quite a tasky role. So it's basically a lot to do with like the day-to-day running and weekly running of the departments. So I had men's, active and kids, so I have to make sure like all my stores were getting all of their stock shipped, and like loads of different like logistical things as well. So we basically got all of that stripped from us. So I think it kind of made me realise, TK, a lot about like your impact and how you can impact the business. So I spent a lot of time like doing a research project into like the impact of kids' shoes and like our offer. So I think that really made me understand like what is my impact within any business, what impact can I make as kind of like a placement obviously in the future as a grad. And then I think it also impacted me a lot, because I'm like one of these type of people that literally wants to always do their best, do everything to the best of their ability, which is obviously a good thing, but at the same time it can also mean that you kind of push yourself quite far. So I think I learned through it that I needed to kind of give myself a break. Obviously when you're working from home, you're not in the office environment, you're not going and like having a coffee in the same way, or everyone leaving the office at the same time. So I think trying to learn and still like develop your skills at home is harder when you can't just like sit next to someone and be like, oh, can you just help me with this? And a lot of the time as well, like we wouldn't ever have a full week where we were in the office. So we'd like go out to store visits, or we'd have strategies, or we'd go out with our team, or there'd always be something that we'd be doing. So to go from like doing that and having things to look forward to every week to kind of like always being at home, quite hard. So I think it's kind of just made me realise that a lot more disciplined being at home, doing uni at home, to kind of look after myself. And I think especially for everyone as well, like when they're at uni and at home, to like look after themselves and just kind of, yeah, give yourself a break. You don't need to always be working all the time.
What about yourself, Lucy?
I think that, well, I went home for the weekend to visit my parents, and then I got a call on Sunday evening saying I couldn't come back into the office. And I never went back. I didn't know. So I still haven't received anything from I've got all my stuff at my desk still haven't been sent it, which is a bit stressful, but we'll get there. I think that the main thing for me was like self-motivation, because obviously you can imagine in a Disney office, you've got like, you're sitting there with all of your blooming Disney toys everywhere and all the posters and all the designers, and you have ridiculous meetings, and you've got the cinema at work and the cafe, everything's Disney, so it's a really exciting place to be. Then to be chucked into your parents' dining room with your laptop, it's a bit of a culture shock really, but no, it was okay. I think my main thing again was self-motivation, being able to like sit there and like plan my day out. But I think it's beneficial in the sense that I can now, I think I've been prepared for doing university at home. I think I would have really been upset by the idea of it if I hadn't have done that in placement. Obviously it's not ideal, but I think that it's made me realise that I'm actually very capable of doing, you know, a degree. If I've managed to do a full-time job at home, I'm very capable of being able to do a degree at home. So
that's an amazing way to look at it. Absolutely. You will nail final year after the scenarios you guys have faced. What about you though, Dan? Because obviously you've had to deal with the lecturing side of things, moving all online, as well as trying to juggle keeping your own business going as well. How have you found it? You're still on mute.
See, I'm trying to be polite here and not talk over people. So yeah, I was studying my master's. So it was about March time, wasn't it, when we went into lockdown? And all my modules were sort of coming towards their deadlines at that point. So that was quite interesting, having to finish all my work that was so nearly completed, shifting, also being at home. That was a bit of a not so much a shock, but an interesting way to see how productive I was at home. And again, that was quite good. It made me learn in different ways. It made me think of how to be productive, to set, timing so I'm not working for too long, work in different places so I don't get distracted and things like that. And then over summer, my major module, that was interesting because we'd quite often have to go out and talk to people, go out and do practical things outside, have interviews with people. And so the design process as a whole, as well as the actual module, was very, very different to how it would normally be. But you just have to sort of adapt, really. Think of how can I make the most of this situation? Use the internet, really. You can Skype people, you can webcam and things like that. And my project was on a farm, because I work on a farm. I kind of got around the lockdown bit, but I know for the other people on my course, it was very much it really impacted on their work, because you can't do as much as what you wanted to do. But when you show your work and what you've done to an employer and how you worked either at a career or on your module or your university during lockdown, if you can show how you done what you did during that and how you went about it, I think that'd be interesting to see. And as for my business, it was, well, luckily it sort of took off really. I think because people had time to buy things online instead of working, it sort of took off. And because I was working from home anyway, I didn't really get impacted that much, which was good. But yeah, is the major shift from being at university every day to suddenly being back home was completely different. And a lack of resources and technology really impacted. But like everyone said, you just have to adapt and get on with it and make the most of this new working life really, and then go back when you can. So brilliant. Yeah, it's interesting.
So Laura and myself obviously found ourselves working from home as well. I'm still working from home, sat in my dining room today, and Laura's clearly sat in a lovely office with all her books. But I want to bring Laura into the conversation now because throughout everybody's placement year, Laura is the one constant that you have throughout, there to support and guide you. And obviously she sees you all grow and develop throughout the year. So I'd love to hear from you, Laura, and your thoughts about all of this.
Thank you, Sam. Yeah, I don't know how to describe my job any better, really. What a wonderful way of describing what I do. And I think it's a real pleasure and a privilege for me to be able to see so many different students from so many different programs go out into industry and come back more skilled, more confident, happier with their direction. It's interesting to me that all of you have talked about finding a different direction or finding a focus through doing your placement, which I think is a really valuable facet of the experience as a whole. And I also think, you know, at the moment, we're developing skills on placement years in all sorts of different ways. But in the current situation, there are different skills to develop perhaps than we anticipated just due to the current situation. All of you, Shoshana, Lucy, Rachel, you've been confronted by a change that nobody anticipated, and you faced working from home, either physically at home in the UK or abroad, as you had, Shoshana, having to learn new technologies really, really quickly in order to get up to speed to just complete tasks that, you know, a week ago, a month ago, you would have been doing in an office surrounded by colleagues and your managers for support. On top of that, it's that idea of not being able to turn in your chair and ask those questions of people that you see every day, those colleagues that you're used to asking face to face, having a coffee with. And I think what you've all picked up on is that adaptability, that resilience, that self-motivation that you have to have on placement generally, but particularly in the current context and the current climate. And I think for me, these are skills that we didn't anticipate being developed in this way, but what a fantastic thing that they have, because from my perspective, these are things that employers will definitely be looking for in the near future, but also probably long term. It's an element of digital literacy, I think, that is a challenge to adjust to at the time, but could be something that helps you stand out in the future in terms of things you can do, that adaptability and flexibility to pick up new things quickly, but also that, I guess, sense of self-belief, that resilience that you now have or have developed in a slightly different way through doing your placement, and also through doing your placement for Shoshana and Lucy and Rachel in the current climate, in the situation that you've had this year. And Dan, I guess building on that a little bit, a question for you from me. Do you think the skills you developed on placement definitely helped you setting up your own business? It seems like that self-motivation, that focus were definitely two key elements, but were there other things as well, do you think?
I think it was a lot of it was being in the work environment, being in the office, seeing how everybody else worked. When it came to setting up my own business, I sort of needed to know how a business even works, because I didn't really know that. And from my placement, that's certainly what I learned. It's seeing how people, of course, I work on my own, but it's good to see how people interact with customers, how they interact with each other, how they monitor their documents, their in and outs of their spending. You know, it's really interesting actually, because I didn't really know I wanted to do my business whilst I was there, but in the back of my mind, I was looking at how, you know, a business would work and how it would grow. And whilst my placement, you know, wasn't brilliant for the designing world of, you know, what a consultancy is like, because I didn't enjoy that, I certainly learned how to work within a business and how a business, you know, grows and expands. So yeah, I learned a lot from that, particularly when I started in the early days, the first few months of my business. I kept referring back to my notes, what I'd learned at my placement, how to file everything, how to speak to customers, how to arrange all my documents, how to monitor everything. It was a real good experience for that, and it's something that I wouldn't have been able to do in my business without, really. So it's pretty invaluable, really.
Really wide ranging from what you've said, Dan. So the kind of industry knowledge and the technical skills that you need to do your business, but also that kind of broader transferable, those elements too of communicating with people and knowing how to organize yourself, all those kind of broader elements as well that seem really, really invaluable. Fantastic stuff.
So,
I was just going to say.
no, go ahead, Rachel. What were you going to say?
Going to say that obviously as well, when you're on placement, you meet a lot of like people who have worked a lot in the industry. So like obviously the fashion industry, although it's massive, it was also quite small. So a lot of people know each other. A lot of people have worked for a lot of different companies. So for example, one of my buyers who was on my team, he actually had worked for Arcadia, he'd worked for like Topshop, Topman. He was really well known in the industry. His wife actually worked at the London College of Fashion, which was amazing. So he was just an amazing person to kind of get that industry knowledge from. Like he literally knew everything. Like he did some of our massive deals. He was just such an exciting person to talk to. And there's like so many other people. Like I feel like you don't only get that experience of the company, you also get the experience from every person that you meet as well, and those people that you could potentially contact or know for the rest of your life if you ever need anything. Or you never know, someone that you meet on placement, if you go and work for another company or you go back, they might be working there, they know you. So I feel like it's all about impressions, and you also just meet so many people that are really inspiring.
I spend my life telling people it's not what you know, it's who you know, and that the fashion industry is very small, and everybody kind of looks at me with that look that says, it's global, it's not that small, until you're actually in it. And then exactly what you have just said, Rachel, people move around and you build those contacts up. And I know quite a few of you are on LinkedIn. And I talk quite a lot to students about how important LinkedIn is and building your profile before you graduate. Rachel, I'll just come back to you because I know that you've done quite a lot with your LinkedIn profile throughout your placement time. How valuable have you found that as a resource?
I think LinkedIn is just a great platform to be able to meet so many different people. And like, I literally just add anyone. So anyone that I think I'd be interested in their company, or I just add any buyers that I see. Because I think, well, if they follow me back, they can see content that I'm doing. Potentially, you know, they could approach me about a job. I could approach them about something. I use it a lot to look at jobs, like especially now, or even just look into the industry, kind of what's going on. I think I find it really interesting to see what other students and other people are doing. So that's sharing their work or their experiences. So I think for me to use LinkedIn and do the same thing, so many other people are kind of getting the same information from LinkedIn from my posts is what I get from other people. So I think it's really beneficial. And it's also a way that I can keep in contact with all of my like contacts from TK, all of my buyers, can message them whenever I want as well. So it's really nice way to use it like that.
Anyone else, any thoughts about how they're using LinkedIn?
I love LinkedIn. It's like my new favorite social media app. It's great. I also think it was a really good way to keep in touch with my lecturers over placement, because fashion buying is such a huge course. There's about nearly 200 of us on the course, and I think that if you want a half decent reference at the end when you graduate, you want them to remember what you did and what you were doing. And I was able to post like the ranges I designed, and I was able to post sort of the environment I was in, and I was able to repost different Disney posts, and even throughout summer as well, posting about my business. So they knew that I was going to be trying to do my final year whilst also doing a business. Was really super vital for me, I think. But I think LinkedIn's great, and I think that you always, every day you have a new connection request, and it's always from, you know, someone in a business. And I think as well, I purposely go on to the businesses that I would maybe like to work for and try and connect with people who work there, even if they think I'm a bit weird for trying to do it because they're complete strangers. I think it's a really good way of trying to connect with people.
Brilliant. Shoshana, I want to bring the focus back to you for a minute, because obviously you relocated. Rachel touched on the fact that herself and Lucy relocated to London, but you kind of took that relocation that one stage further, relocating to Spain. And if memory serves me right, you don't speak Spanish, or at least you didn't when you started. How's your Spanish now?
It's a little better than when I didn't speak at all when I went there, so I felt in the community a little isolated because where I went, it was further north of Barcelona, so not a lot of people spoke English. So I definitely learned quickly to ask for very specific things. But in the community, in the school community, it was great. Everyone wanted to practice their English, so come up and talk to you, and you're like, yeah, that's great, that's fabulous, keep going. And it was amazing when you started to learn. People like, we know this isn't your first language, but it's great that you're trying. And it was like a really nice appreciation. And I was like, yeah, I really want to get a part. I really want to try all the foods and just get involved in the culture. So relocating was hard, but it was an amazing experience. Like, you really find what you're made of when you're put in a situation where you have no one else but yourself. You're like, panic for 5 minutes, calm down, how do I fix the situation? And that was one of the biggest things for me on placement, was like, how do I fix this so I can live abroad.
When you walked through our office doors, and I remember you being a little bit nervous about opportunities and things like that. So what was it that made you decide that you wanted to do a placement? What was the influencing factor that kind of said to you, yes, I need to do a placement? Because you were the first dance student that we'd sent on placement anywhere, let alone to Spain. So I got so excited when you walked through our door. But what was it that made you consider doing that placement?
An odd story took me down there. I have to take placement for my degree, but you were so inspiring. With like, yeah, we do this as well. Like, you can go abroad and you do this. And I was like, wow. And travel, I have the bug. I'm all over that. I want to go everywhere. I want to see the world, and I want to be a part of it, and I want to give something back. So being able, you're like, oh, you can go to Spain, you do this. And I was like, oh, teaching in Spain. Yes, take me. I want to do this. And literally just 2 days later, I'd already decided, because it's like, it was a once in a lifetime opportunity. Like, yes, I could go teach in Spain in a couple of years, but it wouldn't be the same, and I want to have the support from you guys if I did it from a couple of years from now. And it was definitely an experience. I'm very grateful that, I just went yes and just took it. Well, I don't know if it was an impulse decision, but either way, I'm happy. I'm very happy with the choice that I made to go.
Interestingly, Laura went to Germany and did some teaching overseas, didn't you, Laura?
I did many moons ago, and I think what's interesting about placements or about any kind of time in industry is it really pushes you out of your comfort zone. So whether that's relocating to a big city, whether that's a role you aren't really sure about, or an environment that you have never been in before, or being in a completely foreign country, there's always something that is completely different but it helps you to grow, doesn't it? I think what unites everybody here talking today is that idea of resilience and about building your confidence and actually taking yourself out of the familiar and doing something that is slightly different. But even in the first few months, you can suddenly see those positives starting to come out, whether that's the communication skill, whether that's pushing yourself out of your comfort zone to go and talk to someone you've never spoken to before, try and speak a different language, learn something new about a role, or direct your focus. I mean, for me, being in Germany, my German wasn't amazing, but I came back so much more confident to just try. And I think that's something that kind of unites placements generally, is it's that trying, isn't it? It's just giving it a go and seeing what comes out of it, and being able to talk about it, and recognizing that there have been challenges, but there've been so many positives as well. That's my perspective anyway.
Lucy, what was your motivation for wanting to do a placement year?
Well, my mother, she's worked in the fashion industry for 30 plus years now, and I think that even before I started university, it was almost like a must do. And I hate saying that, because it's not like I was following my mother's approval or whatever. But I think it was very much almost like a fast tracked application to the industry. I think once you've got a decent company with a decent role and you've got a good reference, when you go then to apply for graduate roles, it's almost like, you get put in the good, like the fast track pile. You almost, it gives you another level of experience. And also, I think it's really important in the sense that, I might have gone in placement and decided I didn't want to do fashion anymore. I wouldn't want to have got to my graduate role and done that out. And I think for a lot of people, it molds on what kind of company you want to be working for after you graduate and what kind of companies you want to be applying for now. And I think I sort of knew that I wanted to do a placement when I started university. I think it was a really exciting thing to do, especially like moving away to a different like a city or a country in your case, and then you're earning your own money with an actual decent salary as well. I think it really prepares you for after you graduate.
What about yourself, Rachel? Because you were our first successful student in getting a placement. You were very quick off the mark and like hot on it from the start. So what was your motivation?
So I was the same as Lucy. I always wanted to do it. So as soon as I found out when I came to the open day that I could do a placement, I wanted to do it straight away. I think the reason why I wanted to do it was, I think it just kind of gave me, and now I look back at it and I think it gave me the great opportunity to have a year out of uni. I think kind of contextualize everything. I think it's a great time to kind of just like look back and think, okay, what have I learned? Be able to kind of build on your skills, but in a different way. I think kind of meet people, learn so much about yourself. Like, I can't really remember what the motivation was at the time because I knew I wanted to do it. But I think I just knew, because I've wanted to be in the fashion industry from such a young age, I knew how competitive it was. So to be able to have a placement and to get a placement in the fashion industry is like a big thing anyway. So I think just to get in that experience as much as you can was just kind of that motivation to get it and actually do it.
What about you, Dan? Because for the cohorts that are going through now and have been for a couple of years, it's now a 30 credit module for them. Whereas obviously that wasn't on offer for yourself at the point where you did your placement. What was your motivation for doing it?
Well, really, when I went to university, the whole point was to do what I can to advance my career, take every opportunity I could. So when you get offered a placement, the obvious answer to me would be yes, because why not? You might not necessarily get where you want to go. You might not necessarily get a brilliant placement. It might be bad. It might be fantastic. You don't really know. But the point is that I wanted to somehow do a placement because of the experience I was going to get with it. It's effectively a free job sort of thing. People who you'd go do a placement for sort of want you anyway, because they know what you can bring. They can give something back to you. And the idea of doing a placement is that you're sort of safe. When you leave and get a job, you're on your own. You don't have this support of the placement team or anything around you. But when you do a placement, you have the support from university, and the companies know you're not going to be brilliant at everything. They know you're going to make mistakes. They know you're going to learn on the job. And so to have that opportunity was a great motivator, really, because I knew that I would be safe there. Even if it wasn't great, I'd still learn something. I'd be better for it. And in a year's time, if it was excellent every day or if it was horrible every day, no matter what, at the end of it, I would look back and think, well, I'm glad I did it because I learned this, this, and this. And without my placement, I wouldn't have known any of that. And it's just another thing to put on your CV, really, isn't it? Another qualification in a way that I've got my degree. I've also worked in a placement that shows that I'm motivated, I'm dedicated to my course, and I want to do well. And as the others have said, it's a great stepping stone for when you graduate. You can say, look, I've got this in my back pocket. I'm ready to get started. So, yeah, just another way of advancing my career and adding more to what university already offers, really.
I can't thank you guys enough for being so open and honest about your experiences throughout this session today. I am very conscious of time, that we are about to run out of it. So guys, I wish those of you that are back for your final year all the best success for the finalist.
Absolutely.
Lucy, make the most of the enterprise team while you're on campus, because they will 100% be there to help and support you with your business idea. The same goes for you, Dan. Obviously, they support graduates as well. And like I say, it was a pleasure working with all of you. I had the opportunity to work with all of you whilst you were searching for your placements. And it was an absolute pleasure, and it's a joy to watch how you grow when you come back from your placement year, and for you, Dan, to see how your career's just gone in a completely different direction. For me, I don't see anyone who comes back from a placement and identifies that it's not what they want to do as a negative. For me, that to me is exactly what a placement is about. You identifying what's the right path for you to go down. And in some cases like you, Shoshana, it's absolutely solidified that you want to teach. Whereas for you, Lucy, you've identified what kind of company you want to work for and how important that is. Dan, it identified absolutely, I want to work for myself, but I actually want to give back. That took me years to find that motivation that drove me in my career. So the fact that a placement was able to enable you to self-realise that quite quickly, for me, that's a win-win. And for you, Rachel, the fact that you had a graduate offer is absolutely outstanding. The fact that you have grown so much in confidence to know that that isn't the route that you want to go down, to me, again, that is a massive, massive success of what placements are all about. So I'm sure Laura will want to say some final words as well, but my final words are thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your experiences with everybody else. Laura, anything you'd like to finish up on?
I'm not sure how I can really. I think you've echoed. I can only echo the sentiments that you've put out there, Sam. It's my pleasure and my privilege to work with all three of you and all the other students who go on placement. I think it's really refreshing for me to get to work with people who are so passionate, who recognise the opportunities and take full advantage of them. That's definitely something that is fantastic for me to see, and I look forward to all the different ways that you're going to go out into the world and be fantastic and contribute and have an impact. And I think if being on placement has helped you to develop that in any small way, then that's a fantastic achievement. Yeah, thank you so much for coming and talking to us today. It was brilliant to hear your opinions and your insights.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, everybody, and we will see you around campus.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.